Welcome back, everyone. Time to do another comparison this time around between the newly released iPhone 12 Pro Max and the somewhat older iPhone SE 2020. Now, both these phones actually came out this year, but obviously the 12 Pro Max looks like the newer, more expensive device because it is the newer, more expensive device. This phone cost $1,099 to pick up. The iPhone SE 2, you can pick it up for $399 in the brand new market. But I have seen these go, a couple of deals here and there on eBay for a little bit cheaper. So I'll find the cheapest ones on Amazon, link them down in the description below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see that the iPhone SE 2 is a much smaller phone than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And just for you guys, I'll overlap them. And you can pretty much see that the entirety of the iPhone SE 2 pretty much fits into the body of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So this phone is definitely far bigger. But on the iPhone SE 2, we have a 4.7-inch panel on it, and it's a decent panel. I've been talking about this phone for a while. I've done tons of comparisons, tons of reviews. I think I'm probably the person who's reviewed and compared this phone to more phones probably on all of YouTube, to be honest. And I can tell you, it's a good phone. For the price tag, it's not bad. You do have a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom, the home button here included. Take it as you will. I don't think it's a crazy deal breaker or something, but it is something to kind of keep in mind at the end of the day that it is a little bit of a different design phone when it comes down to it. On the other hand, you have a phone like the 12 Pro Max with its 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED panel, and it is a really good panel at the end of the day. I think this is, a really good sized panel. You have very little bezel around it. It's a much bigger phone than the iPhone SE 2 as well. I mean, this is a massive phone, a little bit of a notch up top, and for sure, when it comes down to it, this is a beautiful designed phone, and it's a far better looking phone than the SE2. But I think for the price tag, the SE2 is also pretty decent, but the 12 Pro Max definitely wins there in terms of the thinness between both. You can definitely see that I think too the 12 Pro Max is a thicker phone overall than the SE2. The SE2 is a very, very thin phone and it feels very thin, but because you have the flat size on the 12 Pro Max, it feels a little bit thicker, so kind of keep that in mind. And on the back, you can see single camera setup on the iPhone SE2, triple camera setup with a LiDAR sensor on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. You have glass backs on both, but you have that standard glass back on the SE2. We have that frosted glass back on the 12 Pro Max, which feels really good in the hand. Is one way crazier, better built than the other one? No, but they both kind of feel the same in the hand. It's just the 12 Pro Max is the better phone overall. Better IP certification, wireless charging, different things like that. MagSafe capability on the 12 Pro Max. So a lot of similarities between both, but I think the 12 Pro Max is probably the better built phone when it comes down to it. So in terms of the outside, that pretty much covers it up. In terms of the software, this is very easy. The iPhone SE2 is technically having a 1-year-old chip inside of it, where the 12 Pro Max has a latest chipset. So that's another big thing to keep in mind. Is it a deal breaker? Is it the end of the world? Not really, but it is something to kind of keep in mind at the end of the day. So what I'll tell you is the iPhone SE2 is probably not going to last as long as the 12 Pro Max, but we're not deep into the life cycle yet, and we're so early on that you can get the SE2 or the 12 Pro Max updating the phone before the software even ends, you know what I mean? So that really pretty much covers it up in the software standpoint. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both phones. The iPhone SE2 has that Apple A13 Bionic chip inside of it with 3 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 12 Pro Max has that Apple A14 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster phone between both of these. Okay, now that we're back, let me go and clear all the apps in the background, and I think they're already cleared. Perfect. Let's go and do phone calls. 3, 2, 1. And very instantaneous on both. I don't think one was way faster than the other one. Let's do App Store. 3, 2, 1. And the SE2 was a little bit behind, but it was actually still very, very surprising how both, were kind of around the same. Let's just go into this one. And yeah, I was actually pretty surprised by how well the SE2 was able to go for there. Now let's go and do these third-party apps that I always get into. Let's do Fruit Ninja. 3, 2, 1. And you can even see to get into the half brick logo, it was faster on the 12 Pro Max, especially noticeable when you get into that specific panel. The SE2 was a little bit slower for sure. And you can see the iPhone 12 Pro Max is fully loaded. The SE2 may get into like this age little panel, so it's not really that big of a difference, but I don't really know what's going on here. It's probably a glitch, but the 12 Pro Max was definitely faster there. Facebook 3, 2, 1. Again, 12 Pro Max is faster, SE2 a little bit behind. Twitter 3, 2, 1. SE2 was slower. iPhone 12 Pro Max was ahead right there. Let's do Snapchat 3, 2, 1. Again, 12 Pro Max is faster. iPhone SE2 a little bit behind. Paper.io 2, 3, 2, 1. The 12 Pro Max was faster. iPhone SE2 a little bit behind. Let's get into some gameplay and see what happens. And I think they're going to be roughly around the same. I don't think there's going to be a ginormous difference between these two, to be completely honest. But that one was very, very close too. Let's do Real Racing 3, 3, 2, 1. Now this is a bigger game, so sometimes there is a humongous load time, But like I've seen before with the 12 Pro Max, it does actually a pretty decent job of getting into it fairly fast. And you'll probably end up seeing right now the 12 Pro Max is already loaded. The iPhone SE2 maybe gets stuck into like a loading panel of some sort. We don't know. Usually it's like around this time where we will see if it actually loads up or gets into the downloading panel. And you can see it actually loaded up. And that was a pretty big difference between those two. Usually I don't see that big of a difference with like a last generation chip, but that right there was a pretty big deal in my opinion. Let's do tempo run 2, 3, 2, 1. And that's not to say the SE2 is a slow phone. I think for literally 99% of people out there, you're going to be perfectly fine. Actually, you'll think the SE2 is more than fast enough, to be honest. You can see these smaller apps, that's where you see slower differences or lower differences. You're seeing basically the iPhone 12 Pro Max is able to be just slightly faster than the SE2. Getting into some gameplay, this is a very basic game. I don't think we're going to see any differences for the most part. And you can see, yeah, roughly about the same on both. Not a ginormous difference by any means. Let's do Bofa. We don't have it. Let's do Dropbox. We don't have it. Let's do Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. 12 Pro Max faster. Vanessa 2 a little bit behind. Netflix 3, 2, 1. And the 12 Pro Max again was the faster one. Snake versus Blocks 3, 2, 1. And the 12 Pro Max is faster. iPhone SE2 a little bit behind. Getting into some gameplay. This is a very basic game. We're not really going to see any differences here. Stack 3, 2, 1. And you can see the 12 Pro Max was actually way faster getting into it than the iPhone SE2. So let's end it off with thank you 3, 2, 1. And definitely the iPhone 12 Pro Max was the faster one there for sure. So to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, I can definitely tell you the iPhone 12 Pro Max is the faster one when it comes down to it every single time. RAM management should be theoretically twice as better than the SE2. But I think the SE2 did a really good job at kind of keeping it consistent in the background. Was it the best performing phone? Not at all, but it's still actually pretty decent for the price tag. And like I said before, when you're looking at both these phones for the price, it's a very compelling offer of what the SE2 is still able to do. I think the RAM management, though, speaks for itself. The SE2 is just not going to do so well when it comes down to the RAM management portion, but for really anything else you're going to do with it, the SE2 is going to be perfectly fine. As long as you're not trying to multitask out of a bunch of apps, I think the SE2 is still going to be good for a bunch of people, but the 12 Pro Max by far is a better one when it comes down to it. So that pretty much covers up the speed comparison. Let's go and hit on the cameras. Now, as I said before, triple camera setup on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 12 megapixel telephoto lens with that LiDAR sensor. With the iPhone SE2 has that single 12 megapixel wide angle lens. And there we go. And what I can tell you is with the iPhone SE2, like I said before, I've done a ton of comparisons with the camera even with this thing, and it's actually a really decent single camera setup, but that's the issue. It's a single camera setup. If it was a dual camera or triple camera, it would have made this phone a little bit better, but because of that single camera, it really doesn't do it any favors if I'm being honest. It's a really good single camera setup. You can do 4K at 60. The front camera is also a little bit of an issue. You can only do 1080p on the front camera of the iPhone SE2, where you can go 4K at 60 on the 12 Pro Max, so that's a pretty big difference in my opinion. Now with the iPhone 12 Pro Max, you're getting an overall better camera setup and more camera lenses. You're getting that, dual triple camera setup with that LiDAR lens, and you can do 4K 60 just like the SE2, but you also have 4K 60 on the front camera of the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which that in and of itself is a really big deal, I think. That's a huge asset for this device. Yeah, you're probably not going to be using it all the time, 4K 60 on the front, but having that capability really adds a lot more character to the phone, so definitely when it comes down to the camera, the 12 Pro Max is the better one, but I'll definitely do a full camera comparison at some point. Now ending it off with the battery life, this is a no-brainer. The iPhone 12 Pro Max is going to be having way better battery life than the iPhone SE2, and I will do a full battery comparison at some point, but this phone I think has like twice the amount of battery size in it than the SE2, so I would probably assume the 12 Pro Max is going to kill it in terms of the battery standpoint, but I'll do a full battery comparison like I said. But to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you go pick up the 12 Pro Max, should you pick up the SE2, what I can tell you is there's a lot in pros and cons for both these phones, but with the iPhone SE2, for the price tag, it's a really decent phone still. It has a ton of capability behind it. It can really do everything you throw at it, like this is not a bad phone, it's not a slow phone by any means. It's just for the price tag and for the RAM, it's just the RAM is kind of an issue when compared to the 12 Pro Max, but realistically day by day you're going to be perfectly fine with this phone if I'm being completely honest. There's no other way to put it. This is a very capable phone. As long as you're not comparing it side by side to another phone, then your standards are going to be super okay with this. You're going to have a really good time with this camera and this phone, not camera, but to kind of, I mean, if you're gonna like, compare it to the 12 Pro Max, and if you're gonna constantly be like, oh, I wish I got the 12 Pro Max, then yeah, the 12 Pro Max is the better phone. The SE2 is not quite of a good phone as a 12 Pro Max, but for the price tag of what this phone is, it's not a bad priced phone. You're getting a really decent display for the most part. iOS support for a very, very, very long time. This phone is going to outlast the Galaxy S20 and the OnePlus 8 Pro and 18, all those phones. Like this one's gonna last over it. The only issue I have really is the RAM and maybe a little bit of the battery, but I think for the most part, this is a really, really good phone. Whereas on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, this is the best iPhone you can pick up right now. It has pretty much all the bells and whistles. It has so much capability. Is it perfect? No, but just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's not worth it. And I can definitely tell you this phone for $1099 is an expensive phone. It's still the one of the most expensive iPhones, but it's just such a capable phone that it just doesn't make any sense to me why somebody would not want to pick this phone up because of any other reason. I think the 11 Pro Max is a killer device. I think that phone is a really, really good priced phone too right now. But the 12 Pro Max is the best iPhone you can pick up. So when it comes down to it, that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or you want to pick either of these phones up, links are down in the description. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the video, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it'd be so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly, everything else. I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.